What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Saturday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are proudly sponsored and powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. They are open 7 days a week, 856-579-8250. Check them out on social media. Sign up for their emails. You can shop online. They'll give you best bang for your buck as well with used sports equipment and more. Trade in, cash on the spot. Don't forget the new Mount Laurel location opening up very soon. And with that, we welcome in our very good friend, fresh off last night. He got a couple rounds in. He's got his Eagles garb on. They cover the number because of Dan Quinn. We'll get into that. But our good friend, Professor Shine at Professor Shine on X. Prop, what's going on, brother?
Hey, how you doing? Good to talk to you again.
You.
Anybody who listened last week, I think they did pretty well
They did.
between who you liked and who I liked. Uh, Actually, all year been pretty good. I guess I'm kind of like a combination right now of
And by the way, our
uh,
picks are free. We do not
that's right.
steal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're giving these information. Arizona on the money line. Denver should have won it on the money line. Block field goal. We're going to get into some college. We're going to close with NFL, but I got to start. Listen, this the scam, the sham, whatever you want to call it. Last night, you had a apropos tweet. The real winners last night are the bank accounts of Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, and the real losers is Netflix, the streaming service,
Boy,
and
Netflix.
us.
If Netflix wants to be in the market for, I don't know, maybe more NFL games, they didn't do themselves any favors last night. Uh, Jake Paul at the end, if you watched it to the end, uh, he said, like the fact, it was a big deal. In fact, Netflix, we crashed their servers. That's not a good thing, Jake. That's not a good thing. If we crash their server, that doesn't mean, whatever, 70 million people you should be able to handle 150 million if you want to be in the running to, eventually do more NFL. Everybody was complaining about it. There's memes all over the place. Um, I didn't really pay attention to this until really last week because remember it got canceled
Yep.
earlier,
Yes.
and I thought there was a chance it wouldn't even go through. It would have been Pete Tyson to say that he did something. He beat up one of his handlers or something, and had to cancel a fight or something insane like that. I actually bet money on the draw. I thought there was a shot that Paul would see that he could easily win and then carry him, and then who loses? They get the money, and it doesn't really count against Paul and Tyson's legacy. His history is still intact. This was probably the next best thing is him carrying him, and Tyson at 600 years old goes the distance. And he gets 20 million or whatever it is, and
It's not a
Jake
bad
Paul's getting
payday.
40. And I think because he lives in Puerto Rico, I don't think he pays any taxes, right?
No, no.
I think
And by
it's
the way,
like
I don't want to hear from the
maybe eight
boxing.
percent,
I
eight
don't want to hear
percent
from these
federal.
these babe in the woods hypocrites. It's a farce. Everyone knew what this fight was. It was glorified exhibition. You look at the glove sizes as well. With the 14 10 ounce. Here we go. Pillow fight.
And it
And
helps. It helps for context. It's
of
it's
course it does.
it's in
Of
your
course,
wheelhouse.
of
That
course it does. But
what are the pros normally wear? 10 ounce,
for championship fights, no doubt,
and
exactly.
they're wearing 14. I mean,
Exactly. So it's like, and that's my whole point. But I'll tell you what, if someone said to you, hey man, we'll cut you a check for 25, 50, 100 grand just to be part of this debacle and, be a showrunner or be a lackey or run wire or, make sure or be part of the entourage or the walk, whatever. They're cashing these checks. So stop with the babe in the woods nonsense. That's number one. And number two, listen,
debating what they
yeah,
like.
seriously, because it's just ridiculous. If
So
that
yeah.
if that event was in Atlantic City, the lineage of rats would have came out of the woodwork. It would have been a friggin' disgrace. But they got paid, and Tyson didn't get hurt. And there was a moment where Tyson could have bull rushed him. He didn't. Breaking news, by the way, Roy Jones Jr. still doesn't like the way Tyson's legs look. And then you got,
How many times did he say it?
oh my God.
Well, if it wasn't buffering, I kept hearing Tyson's like
I
it
didn't
was
have,
rough
you know
timing
what?
out.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. I didn't have one problem. It was It was hazy for 30 seconds, and that was it. It never buffered one
Why?
time.
And you're near the shore.
That's
Maybe it was
right.
better down there.
Near the water, the
A
ocean.
couple points, a couple times I turned it off. I backed out, went
Yeah,
back in.
which is
But
horrible. That's just horrible.
I just kind of laughed, and it's funny with the way the environment is now. You could just laugh and send tweets out and be like, "What the heck is going on here?" And
You can't take that serious
listen,
last night.
it's something that we talked about before years ago, and when we first met, we were talking about the appeal of Oscar De La Hoya and the crossover ability. I think one of the first conversations we ever had about boxing was when De La Hoya fought Camacho, and I
Yep.
remember Camacho wasn't he wasn't ranked.
Yep.
He had a weird win against Sugar Ray Leonard. Remember, he knocked Sugar Ray Leonard out, who are both at the time, they seem like they're 100 because it seems like Camacho's been fighting for like 40 years at the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Uh, and then automatically he got a title. He fought
Correct.
De La Hoya. And I remember boxing purists, kind of like us, we were like, what a farce, he was ranked. And then I remember I went to, it was a place where they did a closed circuit. I think it
Yep.
was Atlantic City. Not closed circuit. I'm using old
Like
terminology,
the,
but you
yeah.
remember
No,
they had
you're
a
right.
function, it
No,
was a
you're right.
bar,
They did.
and
Yeah.
I'm telling you, right, it was packed, and packed with girls. It was just packed. They didn't give a shit who
No.
was
And that was
they were like, oh
1997,
my
by the way.
God,
That was
both guys are
1997.
cute or
Yep.
whatever. It was insane. They were just all
Yep.
over it. And I remember thinking, this guy has such crossover, and that's what Tyson always had, and Sugar Ray Leonard had it, and then Foreman was starting to get it, and you can't undervalue that. I mean, look how big his Tyson's crossover appeal is. So big,
Second arc of his career. Yep.
He's almost 60. He could. I said a thing when he got out of jail. I said, you know, he could literally go to a place at the time. The Spectrum was here in Philly. I said he could go to the Spectrum. So listen, I'm going to fight. Rich Canone's here, and I want X amount up front,
Yep.
and we're going to pack it in, and I want to control. I want to talk to Joe Hand, and we're going to do the closer. He was one of those that could literally do that, and they would have watched him fight anybody. Remember, he fought Peter McNeely,
Of course.
who was too bad to be a club fighter. ESPN wasn't even booking him. So
Yeah.
The crossover can never be undervalued, and this was on full display, last night. And to a point, I used to knock Mayweather because Mayweather's top fights, selling fights, were against De La Hoya, was a huge draw. Marquez, which was a huge draw from Mexico. Ricky Hatton, which was unbelievable. I mean, people are flying continents to see Ricky Hatton fight. So I was like, well, it's a little cheesy. And then, of course, you have, Pacquiao, who
Sure. Which well
everybody,
past their prime.
the whole country would shut down for Pacquiao.
Yeah.
But but it also piggybacked. Floyd Mayweather was a person who didn't know. So there's a handful of guys that just cross over. They can fight anybody. And I was thinking last night, if Floyd Mayweather fought kind of a pseudo exhibition against Jake Paul, almost like the Pride Fighting used to do years ago before UFC bought it, where they didn't have weight limits on certain things, but
Sure.
the scoring was a little bit skewed. If you didn't, if you did certain things against the heavier guy, you got more points. Maybe if they did something like that, they said, it's 10 rounds. Paul's gloves have to be 14 ounces, and Floyd's can be 10. Who's not going to buy that?
Yeah. No, you can
Everyone's
sell
going to
that
buy
for
it.
$39,
Everyone's going
$49.
to buy it. And it goes back to, listen, 30 years ago, I remember when Tony Mandridge got drafted and Lou Duva tried to set a fight up with Tony Mandridge and Tyson. And if Holyfield went through the roof and made Duva cancel, kill that. Because remember, there was this time where, they wanted to, Holyfield's camp wanted to do winner take all.
Right.
In 1990, before he went away. And I remember Lou Duva was on Roy Firestone's old show, and he said, if these two guys are at an ice cream parlor and they're behind you and they start fighting, you're not going to watch it. And I remember thinking at the time, that disrespects boxing. But
Yeah,
this isn't about boxing. It's about money and
correct.
about a show, and people want to see
A
a
spectacle.
show,
That's right.
He don't know it's a fight. He thinks it's a damn show.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And they got it last night.
And you know what? I don't know what the hell I was thinking, not betting over, but a lot of smart people did bet Tyson just in case. But like you said, the smarter people just either parlayed or just bet Paul straight,
Yeah.
and then they there you go. It's so interesting. Maybe we will get something. Maybe we get a Canelo Alvarez
Oh,
exhibition
geez.
thing. I don't know, but the street, it is what it is. I guess
Exactly.
is the
No,
cliche.
you're right. You're right. College football chugging along a ridiculous slate of games. I'm glad we're cutting this BYP early on this Saturday afternoon. Listen, you got some interesting storylines, right? You got Tulane and Navy, Clemson, Pittsburgh, Texas, and Arkansas. We'll get into Colorado in a moment. Penn State, we can't figure them out. They should be waxing. Purdue. I mean, you got a pretty good slate of games today. Some of the lines I think are a little bloated up. Some of the games I'm not going to touch. I think probably the best game on paper is Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia's laying 9. So give me a couple games that you like, on the docket.
Well, interesting. Georgia was 10 all week. Um, when you first glance at that, you're like, wow, what? But you don't realize a lot. Georgia has, I believe, if it isn't the hardest schedule up to this point, it's got to be. I got to be top two. I don't know who would be, more. I didn't even go through the official, strength of schedule because like you kind of could just glance at Georgia's and you know that it's absolutely insane. Uh, the question will be, can you lose 3 games and still finish in the top 12?
Right.
I think if Georgia does, they should. They're probably the only one that should. Uh, I think they're sitting at 12 right now. They are going to beat Tennessee, which stinks for Tennessee, but because Tennessee is actually a good team. And what you're going to end up having is most likely you're going to get 4 SEC teams. You're probably going to get 4 out of the big 10.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then you're fighting for 4 spots. The couple of the automatics looks like it probably still going to be Clemson. Notre Dame's going to get the other spot. Unless I'm thinking it wrong off my head, there's really only one spot really available for someone to slide in, which is bad news for Army. I guess Army has to beat, I believe, Notre Dame. Uh, but I think it would be fun if Army was in
Oh,
there.
I would love that.
They have the official rankings, they have them higher than 20, but uh, I have them. I don't have them in the top 12, but I mean, they've actually, it's just this weird thing. They kill everybody, but they don't play anybody. But
Correct.
last year, remember, Michigan had a really weak schedule last year, and you kind of look at the numbers, and you kind of look at them, and you say, well, Michigan is good, and they turn out to be good. I think Michigan was actually just as good the year before when they lost to TCU as a 7-point favorite in that Final Four. But this is going to expand. This is, I think, 100% going to go to 16 teams, and then the argument won't be, all right, well, who's getting left out? Nobody will care as much, and the idea of somebody going undefeated and not making the top 12. I just think it's more fun for fans if Army makes it. Army has zero shot to win the whole thing, but I'd like to see them get in there and get and win one game over Boise, who Boise's getting a lot of strength at, almost beating Oregon. But Boise is a good team, so a lot of this isn't stuff people have talked about before. It was really difficult to get 4 teams, but I remember the days when you had an undefeated team. They didn't get the national championship.
Correct.
And they had three guys get drafted in the first
Drafting in the
10
first
picks. Because we're
round.
talking about 93 Penn State. So, as you talk to people under a certain age, you say, how does that team that go undefeated and they don't get the
Yeah.
championship game? You think, what in the world? That's like the epitome of how screwed up the system was. And then, you had, pet peeves like mine. You had a team, the 3 year run of Miami, where Miami loses on a field goal to Florida State. I'm sorry, loses to Washington.
Yeah.
They beat Florida State.
The wide right
They
game. Yep.
kill everybody else, and then they bring Florida State into the national championship. And it's like, so all of this is
You,
fun if you remember those years. This is
you,
this is not a big deal. If Army doesn't get in, they don't get in. If It would be a shame if somehow Georgia doesn't get in, but I think Georgia's going to get in. I also think Georgia's live to win the whole thing too. Georgia can beat any one of these teams. They can beat them on a neutral. They can win at your place. Once almost, the quarterback's not playing great, but they have look at
very
their
good defense.
schedule.
Yeah.
It's insane
Yeah.
how tough their schedule is, and so a two-loss Georgia, on a neutral, are they going to lose to Oregon? Make Georgia a dog. I
Yeah.
dare
You
you,
you, you
because
mentioned when TCU had that big win, and then obviously last year they start their season off with the clunker against Colorado. Colorado wins a couple games, they cool off. Now you look at Colorado, they're 7-2, they're ranked 18th. They got Utah. I mean, listen, they're bowl eligible, man. I mean, so
well, they're
I
getting a
don't.
little lucky. Everybody
Yeah,
on Utah's hurt. I guess they
yeah,
got, I don't even know, that like the 10th string quarterback playing and all. But and as you know, if you watch this show, we had Utah last week. I got the coveted 3.5, which turned out didn't matter. Then I got a 3. Then when it went off 3, I played a little bit on the money line, which is very sad. How they lost, how they lost that. You're on your own, whatever, 1 yard line, and I'm watching it. I watched it with no volume because they're doing other things. And I'm watching the quarterback from PA run out of the end zone. I'm like, man, what is going on? And I kind of just did something else. I came back and they were at the 50, and I was like,
that's
what in the world's
horrible.
going on? I had to go back. What the hell happened? Like, so it's an improbable win. They're playing with fire, almost like the Kansas City in pro. I think if you walk between the raindrops that like that, eventually you're going to get got.
Yep.
And will they get got this week? BYU plays home against Kansas. Kansas is pretty popular play. I really liked Utah last week. I just thought, even though that whatever problems they've had offensively, their defense was still decent, and it wasn't like they're playing Central Florida. I mean, speaking of BYU, so that's why I had Utah. I have Kansas a little bit. I don't have it a lot, but I had to play it. I got it at 3. It's not an unbelievably strong play, but I played it. Colorado Utah is interesting because that line was 10.5, then it was 11, then last night late it was as high as 13, and if you give me a minute, I'll look it up to see what it is this morning. It didn't change because it wasn't a game I was going to play unless it hit 14. But Colorado's going to win this game, and I think they control their own destiny. They can play their way in, which it will be interesting because Colorado is a good offense. Their defense is better.
Playing
It
better. Yep.
seems like a lifetime ago that I had Nebraska against them, and I put that on this show. Nebraska kind of falling apart. They got absolutely lambasted against a couple teams. They lost a close game against Indiana. They lost a close game at home against Illinois. But Colorado win the game. Will they cover the 10? I could see them winning 30, 24-14 or something like that. I can also see them winning 31-6. So it's a game I'm not going to play. But it is a pretty popular play from everything from contests to people that I respect. What do you think about that?
I, 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 that's kind of my look, but don't touch game. Like to me, they're kind of an enigma at times. Their defenses play better. They have the capable offense of putting up 35, 40 points, but then they also sometimes can have a slow start to some of these games. Um, listen,
13 and a half. So,
yeah, that's,
everybody and their brothers on it is
yeah,
smart money, dumb money, everything. It did hit 14 a couple places early this morning. Uh, Meanwhile, I missed it, but it was 14 juiced. Let's see what happens.
yeah. I mean, look, they need, right. They
They're
need to
gonna
be,
win, and that
second
bases.
place in the Big 12. They're playing for the Big 12 championship. So, Utah's, they're a bad team. Um,
Yeah, well, injuries do that to you. They're and then how do you recover from how do kids recover? How does coaching recover from a game that the way they lost last week? It's a big,
well,
it's a
just go
big
ask the
deal in
Bears in the
state.
NFL. Go ask the Bears in the NFL. They lose to Hail Mary,
Yeah.
and look, you know what I'm saying? I mean, kids, grown men, you lose in horrible fashion. That derails your season pretty fast, and then you start. 18-year-olds, I don't think mailing in. Pros mailing in.
Well, you know what happens? They take their cues from the adults in college. If guys are pointing the finger,
Correct.
you know, I do think sometimes you can rally around that. Everybody's against us. Look what the
Sure.
refs did.
Yeah.
Let's go out and kick. But it's also end of the year. Again, if this hits 14 again, I would take a look at Utah.
You
But
like Georgia? You like Georgia
I
today?
do like Georgia.
They're late. I think I closed it. I mean, it hasn't closed yet. It's 7:30 kickoff, but I think it's sitting at 9.
Yeah, there's a few 9.5s. Circa's down to 8, actually. So you have some people bought back Tennessee, or people waited to see what would happen. I like Georgia at 8, but it's not. I don't see an unbelievable huge edge. But if it's under 10, I think
It's a
play
smart.
Georgia.
It's a good
Play
play.
Georgia. Tennessee is good, but like we always say here, uh, 27-17 is a close game.
Right. Of course.
It depends how the game was. It 27-3 and then it
Right.
came back, or was it
Right.
back and forth?
Right.
So you can lose by 10, and it's still a relative. I'll give you an example. Indiana's going to play Michigan, and it's going to decide. Everybody's kind of confused how good Indiana is. I mean, not Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan. They already beat Michigan. Indiana's going to play, and it really, there's a lot that's riding on how they lose that game. If they lose the game, if you lose 27-17,
Right.
does it knock them? Well, if they're
Right.
down 24-0,
And they got to come
it's
back.
not
Yeah.
good. If they
No.
lose 38-7, they might not
No.
make the field of 12. If they lose, it depends the flow of the game.
Right. A field goal late.
27-17, and we watch the ref blow a call or something.
Yep. Yep.
It's only good for Indiana and good for that conference. The games that I did play, I was wrong 2 weeks ago. I got a good number on Pitt at SMU, and I was a little worried about it. It wasn't an giant game, and they just got absolutely killed.
Laying
People
19 today.
people smarter than me just absolutely, they knew, and I thought Pitt could get the hang in it. Nope. And now this game for BC is going against BC is going from 16 and a half, 16, 16, all the way up to like 20, and now it's like 18 and a half. I don't like the game. I don't even like the idea that SMU is looking to make a statement kind of thing. That I don't like that kind of narrative. I don't think it's not like James Franklin's coaching every one of these teams where they're going to run it up against the bad teams. I think if you get 20, I think BC would be interesting to look at. But SMU has a bigger game coming, and I'd say ignore that game, unless, of course, you got the 16 and the game closed at 20. You're looking pretty good. The game I like is Missouri against South Carolina. My only worry is, historically, me personally, I've been better when I play dogs in this manner that are under 10. Once it gets over 10, it gets a little squirrely for me. Some of the things that I use kind of aren't as aren't as great. I tend to be better. The lines are closer. So if I get a 7 point dog, a solid 7 point dog, or a solid 6 point dog, or 8 point dog, a lot of times I'll get money line. I'll win money lines on those type of games, and uh, so it's the only thing that worries me with Missouri. I think it's an overlay against South Carolina. I have them. Some people think Missouri is a fraud, but for the things I look at, they match up pretty well. I think it's a decent amount more than what it should be.
So you
I
like
think this
Missouri?
really.
You like Missouri
I
covering the
like
game?
Missouri. I bet Missouri early. Uh, so I like Missouri. If it's kind of game I've lost historically, like 35-21, getting 13.
Yeah.
But in one of those games where they're in the game, they're tied, and then they give them a touchdown, and then they throw a pick six. It just seems I tend to lose games that way. But I've also had games like this that won the whole game, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" I just think I have a much more competitive uh, game here than what the market is saying. I also have Nebraska. I took 8.5. Nebraska, Matt Rule out in California. Not as big as a play as Missouri, but I like Nebraska. And I think it actually went down to 7. I'd like to take credit for moving that line, but yeah, it's 7 juiced. Circa has it. You can get +7 -115. But I had 8.5 -110. I think that was a good line. This kind of attitude of what Nebraska, USC's got a little bit screwed. They get screwed at Minnesota. They lose a really tough game against Penn State. But Nebraska, can hang in this game. And I think they have a better than advertised teams. Remember, this is the team that absolutely, crunched Colorado.
Hmm.
That had a lot to do with scheduling
Yep. Yep.
early, and I hate to use that
Early in
old
the season. Yep.
cliche of revenge,
Yep.
but when you have early in the season, some of the players remember how, if Sanders was laughing in your face and this kind of thing, you still prepare the same way. And Nebraska had has a team that set up well for them to be able to beat Colorado in that manner. I also think they have kind of team that could stay within a touchdown. I'd rather get more than 7, but if you want to have fun, maybe play the 7 for a little bit. But I did get 8.5. You know what's weird? Another popular game was that I saw people taking was San Jose against Boise. It's 2 touchdowns. Uh, I would favor going with San Jose. I always like to sometimes look at the hypothesis of, okay, teams that are really have to win to get in, and they're a lot better than their opponent. And again, these guys are kids. And sometimes the coaches feel a little bit of pressure. They do stuff, in a pinch. They punt when they shouldn't, and
Right. Right.
and you have the much better team. Combat that with Boise's at San Jose. Not that San Jose has, a Death Valley type home field, but it's tough to go on the road and kind of have this swagger like, yeah, we're going to go in and kill you, and it's late in the year. So I like that as well. I don't want to pass post, but I did like Texas San Antonio last night only because I thought uh, that they were a little bit better, and they killed. I didn't even watch anything except toward the end. They killed Texas. I have another slop game for you that pertains to this area. Is Florida Atlantic is at is playing Temple, and it's like the slop versus the slop. And when that usually happens, I like the slop with a field goal or more. It opened 3, I believe, but I got no, it was 2.5 for a while. So I played Florida Atlantic on the money line. It's now
Okay.
down to 1. They play today about 2 o'clock Eastern time. Uh, I actually did with sacrilege to most handicappers. I played Florida Atlantic in a what I call a beer money teaser, just to just to see I can get both ways. Florida, maybe Temple win by a field goal, and I still get Florida Atlantic. But it's just a kind of game that I don't expect Temple to go crazy when you have that bad and come down a couple plays. But if you want to have fun, that's that. Do you have any opinion on? I don't have any opinion on Notre Dame, Virginia, but they'll probably kill Virginia. Penn State is playing Purdue. Purdue's unbelievably bad. I think
Yep.
if you want to play something there, you play Purdue under in their team total. They might. I think there's a decent shot they might not score. They didn't score against Ohio State. Penn State's defense is right there with Ohio State. Maybe seven or less and play an alt number. I can see James Franklin winning this 40-7. Uh, and that's it. We'll see what happens. See if my rough prediction comes through. Yeah, everybody would like to see only three teams out of the SEC, probably, but I think four's probably going to happen. And then we'll preface before Indiana plays Ohio State.
Yeah, we got about a couple more minutes, and then we got the afternoon kickoff. So we want to close with a couple NFL games. You mentioned this. You start to get to this point of the season. Sometimes you look at the first half, the team totals. You look at maybe the second half. We know some teams are mailing it in. The Bears, Jacksonville, the Titans, the Jets, the Giants on the bye, the Dallas Cowboys. Even the Browns to some extent. Again, you've got some potential nice little bookend teasers with some of these games this weekend. Um, I'm still going through the docket, but two or three games that you really like, where like okay, the marquee game to me is Kansas City and Buffalo. Kansas City has to put their field goal kicker on the IR or IL for a couple of weeks. I just think this is set up. You mentioned walking through the raindrops and eventually getting got. I feel as though this reeks of a Bills win +10. Like I feel as though Buffalo's been waiting for this type of game. Kansas City is a flawed, undefeated team. Look what happened last week. I mean, come on. You're blocking a field goal late to win the game in a game that we like Denver to not only hang around, but we were backing our play with a little Denver sprinkled on the money line. I think this is the spot where Buffalo beats Kansas City.
Well, I like the Dennis Green quote. They were who we thought
Yes,
they were, and we let them off the hook. I thought. I mean, we know. I know at this point what the teams are, and
exactly.
this kind of set up perfectly for Denver. They were actually in the Raven game, uh, and then Baltimore tends to do. They get up 10, and then they steamrolled the last quarter and a half or 2 quarters, and and then I got a good number with the Broncos in a game. I thought that they could win, and we laid it out. It played out the way I thought it would play. Tennessee didn't lay out the way I thought, but all the other games did. Carolina, where I said Carolina was live in that game, in the game overseas, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina wins. But the Denver, when you have a good defense, and as long as you don't have Knicks throwing interceptions, which he
Right,
didn't,
right.
he had a makeable field goal. I think it was an interesting, fourth down call. I guess you have to take it when you have the kind of defense, and then let the Broncos do what they're going to do. Andy Reid did go for it earlier when they were down
That's
14-3.
right.
They get it. They don't get that. Again, they were fourth down from the 2 or 3. They don't get that. They get no points. And who knows? Maybe it's a little bit different. Bills have owned KC in the regular season with pretty much uh, the same team. Not on defense, it's not the same team, obviously. And of course, Allen doesn't have the same weapons, but they've won at KC. They've matched up well, and a lot of that has to do with Allen. I did play a teaser with Kansas City. Um, I've Kansas City and Miami.
Okay.
I have a teaser Kansas City and Atlanta. Um, but I would not be surprised if and I kind of expect the Bills to win. Uh, 8 point, 7 point. I could see something like that. They could win by 10. I lost the big teaser a couple weeks ago. Green Bay couldn't cover 8.5, which is kind of. I had a great week and I closed, can't against Detroit. So uh, which I thought was a great teaser, and we gave it on the show. So apologies. They had beat you, lose by 10. That could happen here. A lot of people are playing KC because they're a good team, getting 2.5. Spread. I guess you can make a case either way. I think
Gotcha. Okay.
making KC with as in a teaser play, I think is wise. I do think there's other better plays on the board. I think
Baltimore, Pittsburgh.
Tennessee. Well, I think Tennessee is a good play. As Tennessee has not covered a lot of games. They didn't play really well. They had some bad luck. They played well again for a quarter and a quarter and a half against the Chargers last week. I had a nice line. I'm getting 7.5. I lose by 10. But I think Tennessee, not only they're getting 6. I got 6.5 here. Some places it's 5.5. It's probably a solid 6. I think Tennessee can win the game here, as odd as that sounds. Uh, it's rare you get a team. This is Minnesota's third straight road game. It's a lot of points for as many. We go back to this thing we said at the beginning of the year. Elite teams can lay more than 3
Correct.
on the road. If you go back
And what
historically, it's
Darnold
like
you're going to get, right? You're going to get bad Baker. You're going to get bad Sam, right? I mean, in Tennessee, you're right. They can hang around, and
their
maybe they're
defense
up
is
by.
good. They have a
Yeah.
good
Yeah. No, you're
defense.
right. You're right.
You can and you really need like just a Detroit Lion type offense to lay these kind of points against good defenses. This is something
That's a good
universal.
point because they only scored 12 points against a bad Jacksonville team. And Tennessee has a better defense than Jacksonville, I think.
Yeah, and that's another game. We had Jacksonville last week, which is Susan went to 7. I took the 7. So and just this kind of thing. It wasn't a specific. Sometimes it's a play against the teams who I don't think are elite. There's something universal goes all the way back. It hasn't really changed that much. Good teams on the laying a lot of jack on the road. Who are they playing? I think the general public tends to overvalue how bad some teams are, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like remember beginning of the year we were saying I don't is Carolina
Right. You just dismiss them.
2009 Rams
Right.
bad? Are
Right.
they Hugh Jackson Rams bad? I didn't think they were. The first couple of games made me look like an idiot,
Right.
but I
Right.
don't look like an idiot now. Like Carolina's bad, the Giants are bad, but they're historically bad, and you need these kind of. All right, well, how much worse are they compared to I don't know the 10th worst team?
Right. Right.
And then you have a team like the Giants on a neutral field laying more than 3.
Can't do. Yeah, you can't
It's
take
a
that.
play. I'll go down with some of those teams. Sometimes you get burned, but more often than not, you get what happened.
So then, conversely, would you take? And I know we got a couple moments. Let's just say real quick: the Colts and the Jets. The Jets are like
I don't see
Zach.
how you can play. I don't see how you can play the Jets.
That's my point. Even though the Colts are going back to Richardson, I don't trust the Jets at all. They've mailed it in. There's dissension. Rodgers looks like he's hurt. He's banged up. They're not making the playoffs. I'm not overly confident in a game like this. I would be more confident taking the Ravens on the road, laying 3 against Pittsburgh.
You know what's interesting about the Jets? I watched the whole Arizona game, and I mean,
I loved Arizona last week.
and
Loved them.
Arizona. Oh yeah, you did. You loved it. And I said I could see it going either way. What's interesting is their defense. Kyle Murray. I mean, the first half was an
They got
embarrassment.
ran over all over the place.
Their EPA, everything was just they scored just boom, 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 370-yard drive, something
Yep.
insane. Well, the second half, now the Jets are forced to, do this kind of hurry up and
Yeah.
go 4 downs. They get the ball inside the 15, inside the 10. They were there, and I was like, guess what? They score here.
And you make it a
This
game.
becomes an interesting game, and it's just like time and time again. They just, you could go back to all the games that they've lost. It's like one or two plays.
Correct.
This crushes teams worse
Of course it does.
sometimes. I think mentally, if you're strong mentally, you go, hey, we were right there. We were right there. We had a chance to do X, Y, Z. Maybe you should have game
But
film. So
that's the
listen,
difference between good teams, bad teams, and great teams. Great teams can turn it over 5 times, Jared
sure,
Goff, and still win the game.
sure. So I mean, for the Jets to lay more than three, if they're going to win this game, 24-10, so be it. I think you take the Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took the Colts. It's not as big a play as the uh, as the Titans game for me, but it's a play. I think you play the Colts. Play the Colts plus four. I think you might have to fade the Jets. Of course, if the Jets lose this game, they're not be favored the rest of the
Correct.
year. So the other game I have,
Yeah.
Jacksonville at 14, Rich, and I took 14 with Jacksonville. Uh, I do think there's a
I
bunch
can't
of
do it.
reasons. I think there's a bunch of reasons for this. That because we're short on time. And just put it this way: it's hard for teams to just absolutely hammer people by more than 14. I could fully see this game being 31-10,
And then
and
the
then Jacksonville
touchdown.
scoring late. Nobody wants to get embarrassed. Uh, and I think if Detroit does get up early, they will coast. They have a lot to think about over the
Sit Jared
next
Goff in the fourth
Thanksgiving.
quarter.
Yes, I can see. They may not be in that position, but I could see them running the ball over 40 times, multiple guys. I do like Detroit. I got Detroit first half in that game, -7, -115. I don't know if that still exists. If you can get 7 in the first half, I think that's the better play here. So it seems kind of you're playing against yourself. You're playing Detroit first half,
Right.
Jacksonville for the game. I think Jacksonville first half is a better play. And so I did take that. I also have first half. It's a smaller play. First half play on Miami. The Raiders are like a popular play. That was my big play last week. Was Miami. That was the other dog. Remember the play on Monday night? I said that I like Miami here. You were a little surprised.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
and you knew you nailed it. I was shocked.
yeah,
Yeah, you nailed that one.
Miami's on. We looked at what they did. People are looking, I think, Miami a little bit differently. The nation's looking at it a little bit different. It's weird the handicap because they didn't have Tua all that time. Uh, but if Tua is healthy, they are the team from the
We thought they
beginning.
are.
From the beginning, their defense isn't that bad. Now, will they beat the Raiders by more than 7? I think they'll come out of the gate early, like they did against Arizona. What happens later, I do not know. If you want to play teasers in this, I think Miami is a great teaser play -1. And the last game I have the last two games we can talk about is I do like against the Rams again. I have the Patriots. This line did hit 5. I took the 5. It's a dead number, but I took it. If you get 4.5, it's okay too. All of a sudden, people who have futures with under New England are kind of sweating because they won game 1 and then they kind of looked awful. But I don't. I've been down to the Rams. I have a lot of Rams unders. I'm going to lose the Stafford under in passing yards, but I have under Cooper Kupp. I have under Rams not to make the playoffs. They came back and they won the game against Minnesota. I said, "Oh my God, I thought everybody was hurt." They're not
Right.
going to. But so a lot of their numbers are a little weird because they haven't had the full team. But I don't think that they're good enough to go anywhere. Outside of maybe Carolina and lay 5. I think this will be a close game. I could see New England even winning the game. And then the interesting game is the Sunday night game. I think this game got flexed. It's a game that the Bengals absolutely have to
I knew
have.
I know I knew you were going to end with that game.
Yeah,
Your
they have to
Chargers.
have. Their defense is, but Burrow is look at Burrow's numbers. I wrote them down and I had it up on my screen. I don't even have to. Once it gets to a certain level, you're just like, oh my God. But the guy's throwing 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 400 and something yards. I don't care who you're playing or what you're doing. Uh,
I got him
I
right
mean,
here. You want his last couple games? 428, 4 touchdowns, 251, 5 touchdowns, 234, 1 touchdown, a pick, 181, 2 touchdowns, 392, 5 touchdowns.
listen, they call the play, uh, the obvious play. They beat the Ravens. The
Yep.
Ravens is a win.
Yep.
So they've had some duds in there in the middle. I mean, guess what? I don't. The play in Kansas City, everybody complained about that is interference at the end. But that's a game we got exactly right too. I said, Burrows. I fully expect Cincinnati to look well, look good
And
in
they
the
did.
Kansas City
They
game,
did.
and I could see them losing close. Did they really get a knock? This is kind of dressed up where it's like, wow, this is, it was two, it's one. If you want to close out your week with a Cincy teaser, get them +8 or +7.5, to salvage your week, so to speak. If you're a rec better, there'd be worse games to do that on. I think Cincinnati's defense worries me, but I do think Burrow will have enough to win this game.
It's a good call. You can close out that game and you can, if you want to, close down Texans on Monday night. It's
You could do that too. For some books that's the beginning of next week. I
sure.
don't want again. You brought up Texas. Everybody's going to dump on Dallas. McCarthy's walking dead. Everybody knows it, guys. They will get players to play because there's guys that that don't want to look on film as giving up.
Of
Guys that are really
course.
fighting for jobs. They don't want to get cut, or whatever. Uh, I can see Dallas covering 7.5
Yeah.
in a game like this. I don't think the Texans are good enough to go anywhere and lay more than a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, they played well last week. They probably should have won the game. This is, that's for Texas, but I don't like either side. It's something I'd have to decide. I didn't spend a lot of time on that game. But yeah, you could. That might be a good teaser play. I like closing Bengals much better. And then the game that I think is interesting. It was 3.5 all week. We can end on this game because it's important. It's as important as the Bills game. This was 3.5
San Fran, Seattle.
3 days ago. If you played, you got a juice 3.5. Slightly juiced 3.5 and a 3 even is basically the same number. Do you take the Steelers? All these games are always.
Oh, Ravens, Steelers. Yeah. Yeah.
All
I like
these
the
games,
Ravens in this spot.
Steelers. Yeah, I didn't have to name the game. Everybody knew what I was talking. He's always had Lamar's always looked ordinary. He's been superhuman. What's he like? 24.
Yeah, he's having another
touchdowns.
MVP like season.
Yeah, but this is the kind of game where I think he can look ordinary or look bad. He can look average or look bad. And if the Steelers win, 20-16, it may not knock his MVP chances unless Allen goes crazy and then
Correct.
wins a touchdown. If Allen scores beats Kansas City with a 30-yard touchdown run, he plays great, no interceptions, and Lamar looks blah, for futures for MVP, they're going to pull about even. They're going
Gotcha.
to pull even. Goff, unfortunately, my futures are probably dead.
I think so. After 5 picks.
I figured out the numbers, what he'd have to do to get MVP, and it's not even worth talking about. But I do like Pittsburgh in this game. It's not a giant play, but Ravens defense is going to cost them late. I'll tell you that right now. They give up way too many yards. I know they get big leads and let teams come all the way back, which isn't the same thing. There's lots of analytic stats you can look at. Doesn't matter what metric you lose. They don't have a top defense, and that's the bottom line. And Kansas City does. If they end up getting in a game again, Kansas City, is going to be a shootout. The Ravens have to be careful. They play Steelers twice. They play home against the Eagles.
Yes.
And we didn't touch on the Eagles. I'll do 30 seconds on the Eagles. I'm predicting. I think I predicted 2 weeks ago. This NFC is going to be Eagles. I think I even said it last week, messing around, but I'm kind of half serious about the Sirianni hate here. Uh, we're going to get Eagles at Detroit, and it's going to be a close game, and the Eagles are going to lose, and it's going to be something that Sirianni does. They're going to ignore like a fumble or something, and Detroit's going to win 30-20, and they're going to call for his head, and he's going to leave and take like the Raider job or something, something like that. I predict is going to happen, but it will be interesting for this area for them to even get that far because that means the Eagles will get a home game,
Correct.
and it's not guaranteed they'll play San Fran, but they're going to play some. I think at this point it could be anything. It could be home against Green Bay. It
Yep.
could
Yep.
be whatever, but I think that's how it's going to shake out.
All right, there you have it. Good stuff as always. Give the prop a follow on X at Professor Shine. We're powered by our good friends over at Played Against Sports. I mentioned their new Mount Laurel location. You can check them out online, playedagainstsports.com/Mount Laurel to see that they are hiring. And don't forget to swing by location in Deptford, 1450 Clements Bridge Road, Deptford, New Jersey. Open 7 days a week. Give them a call as well, 856-579-8250. Black Friday sales are among us. Thanksgiving's right around the corner, then the holidays. So again, they'll give you some good bang for your buck. The best used sports equipment and more. Our good friends over at Played Against Sports. And in the books, another Saturday edition of BYP with you. Appreciate a couple moments, my friend. Good luck with your bets this
Good
weekend.
luck.